Welcome to No Boxes, Just Verses, the podcast where we go beyond the bios, beyond the titles, and we explore the lessons that have shaped today's most inspiring leaders, all through the songs that have moved them. Each week, we bring you 5 lessons, 5 songs, and 1 unforgettable playlist.
No boxes, just verses. We're not playing around. No boxes, just verses. Listen to the sound. No boxes, just verses. Our stories out loud. No boxes, just verses. Watch wisdom astound. The stories of how we found our way. Stories of how we learned to pray. Our stories out loud. Our wisdom, our pearls. Everyone say wow, 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 wow. Woo, no boxes, just verses. Feel it move.
And today, we finally made it happen. I'm joined by the incomparable Denise Froemming. Denise, welcome to the podcast.
I'm so grateful to be here, Shannon. We made it happen and just looking forward to talking with you. This is a really cool podcast. Everyone should be listening out there.
Thank you, Denise. We have been trying for quite a while to get you on the show, so I'm so glad we were finally able to make it happen. So let me read your bio really quick and then let's get into your story. So Denise is a CPA and she is the CEO and president of CalCPA. She built her career around growing organizations, communities, and developing leaders. And she's currently focused on what's next for accounting in talent, innovation, advocacy, and how the profession stays essential and relevant in this ever-changing world. Denise is passionate about mentoring the next generation of accounting and finance leaders, and she believes that lasting impact comes not from just what we achieve, but from how we uplift and inspire each other. A belief reflected in one of her favorite quotes by Maya Angelou, which is, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never, ever forget how you made them feel." And that is so true. I love that quote.
So true. One of my favorites, yes.
Let's dig into your story and your origins. I want to know, who is a young Denise? What is she dreaming of? I'm certain she's not dreaming of digital transformations in 2026 in the accounting profession. So there's a route to how you got here. And I got to put a plug out there for CalCPA. I love all the CPA societies all over the world, but I am a proud member of CalCPA. It is the largest state CPA society that you're running. And so I want to understand how we got here. But where you started is very important. And the song that you picked is Go Your Own Way by Fleetwood Mac.
My selection of my first songs are really because they reflect my youth. I grew up with Fleetwood Mac. It shows my age. Supertramp, went to a lot of concerts, enjoyed every one of them. And that song reflects for me really the ability to do whatever you can do. And I know there's a lot to it, but for me, my parents, what they achieved, it's really, you can do whatever you want to do as long as you put your mind to it. And they were a great role model for me. They worked really hard. You want to talk about grinding and grit. You have to grind. And they were the epitome of that throughout my whole childhood.
Where are you growing up?
Young Denise is growing up in Wisconsin. Can you hear that sometimes in my voice? Because some people say you have a Wisconsin accent or Midwest, Chicago. I don't know what that means, but I guess I have it. That's where I grew up, and somewhat rural. In my childhood, we moved where we had a lot more land, and my dad had animals. Wasn't my thing, but we grew up with chickens and some goats and some lambs and had a really good childhood. But my parents, throughout when I was growing up, every year they'd build a house or two for extra funds. And my mom worked at night and my dad had a business during the day, a masonry business. And so they built houses. And so what that meant was we were part of that. So at night, when they were done, my dad was done working, we would go to the house with them. And then the weekends, and we do our homework. Sometimes it was pretty cold because the heat wasn't always working. But it'd be a rough house, and they would finish it out and do the work so they could sell it and make extra money. So that's what my sister and I did. We knew from a young age, you have to work. What my dad would always say, you work. If you're happy, work. If you're sad, work. If you're tired, work. You just work.
So work ethic, super important. I was born in a Midwest family and spent some time there. And I truly get that, especially some of those cold, winter nights. And I remember my grandfather coming in from working, and then he had another side hustle job and he was working. But work ethic was really strong. I remember that, especially growing up in factory towns and things of that nature. What are you dreaming of? Where are you dreaming of going in college is in your horizon? So help us through like that transition for you.
Community was always important as well. And I would say to anyone who's anywhere within their career, there were others who lifted them up everywhere. And I would say the community was really important to my parents and being there for others and helping others. So that was critically important. I was dreaming of being my own boss someday and doing something that, because my parents both were entrepreneurs. My whole life was you work really hard and you achieve something, you can build a business. My mom built a business, my dad did. And so for me, it was being an entrepreneur and really impacting others. And when I was 8 years old, I think I always had the service piece in my head because I don't know if you remember muscular dystrophy with Jerry Lewis. You remember?
Oh yeah, the Jerry Lewis, the telethons.
Yeah, he had
Yeah.
that. And you could send in for a packet and you could have like a carnival or something and you could raise dollars. So I did that when I was 8. I signed up and I went in and I got the packet and then I had a carnival. My mom helped me in the garage. I did that. I raised, I don't know, $80 back then. It was a lot of money. And people came from the neighborhood. But for me, that was really important to be able to do service, community service for others. And so I started when I was young and I always had the thought of, can I do something big just to help other people? Maybe that was the association piece in me at that age. But for me, that was dreaming of how can I help others and do something bigger than what I can do on my own.
That's a big part of your journey later on in life. So what are you thinking about in terms of leaving the Midwest or not leaving the Midwest? Like take me through like this decision to get more education.
I was a first generation college student. So my parents did not go to college. My mom started. She was a math major, but she couldn't finish because life gets in the way. So for me, that was really important that I went to school. For them, it was very important. And for me, not to disappoint them. We all have this. We can't disappoint others. We have to make sure that we make them proud. And for me, making my parents proud was really important and instilled in a young age because they gave up a lot for me to go to college. And so I knew how important it was and to make use of every dollar. The education was important and to make them proud because they were like, oh, you're going to Marquette. That's where I went to college. And they sent me to a Catholic high school as well because that was important to them. We had to drive like 30 miles to go to school, but they would drive us every morning and every night. And just a funny story. I remember my dad, he had a masonry business. That's like building houses, the bricks, all that. So he'd drive me in his truck and he'd drop me off and I'd be like, drop me off a block away because I don't want to show up in this big truck with all these supplies on it walking into this school. Yeah, that's like vivid in my mind because I always remember that truck and I'm being dropped off a little ways. It's just what impacts you when you're in high school.
You don't know. And now I'd be like, bring the truck. Like this shows.
Exactly. Yeah. And he had the truck name like Pierre or something. And now I would know this is cool, like kitschy, let's do it. But then when you're in school, it's, oh no, I can't do that. So it's funny when you look back at what you really, what matters and what doesn't.
So your first gen college, do you have somebody in your life at your school or something that's helping you with just figuring out where to go to school? Because I remember telling my kids that one's in college and one's on their way. For one kid, I won't name which one, I was probably super involved. And I just remember thinking, when I went to college, I don't even know my parents knew I submitted the application. I'm not even really sure if they knew.
Isn't that true? Because for my son too, we went to all these colleges. We felt the vibe, had to see how it was. And didn't go to any. I picked Marquette because my uncle, he was an optometrist. That's where he went. So I thought it's either Marquette or Madison. I know Madison, I had a lot of friends that were going there. So I said, which one? And I just picked. So there was no big science to this or like fit, or I looked at, they didn't have a football team. How's the basketball team? I didn't even know that. And I didn't know what I was missing, not having a football team there. It wasn't any of that. You picked and hoped for the best. And initially, Shannon, I went for healthcare because in high school, I started this healthcare group. It was called Helping Hands that kind of helped individuals get into healthcare. I don't know, it was my little thing.
Here you
And
go again,
so,
starting something to help people. There's a thread here.
so I wanted to go into medical because I thought that's where I can help people. But when I went to sign up for the program, it was closed. And my mom was like, "You're good at math. Just go be a CPA. You know, Barb Webb, she's our CPA. Go be a CPA." And I'm like, okay. So that's what I did. And I worked in healthcare with my CPA, my financial background. So it's just how life kind of twists and turns. That's how you get to where you are.
So, Denise, it's so interesting. I don't know if there's been a study. You'll know better than I will. But there seems to be this theme when I talk to a lot of leaders who are CPAs in particular. It seems like someone earlier in their life was either a CPA in their family or they saw a CPA. For me, it was like I took an accounting class in high school and that lady was a CPA. But it's somebody early on in your life that you see it. That's a CPA that a lot of times puts that seed in your head.
It's
That
true. I hear that from
right?
so many people. Yes. It's either their family. Someone told me they saw a CPA on a movie, and I can't remember the movie. And the
Mm,
CPA had a really nice house and a car. And so they're like, I'm going to be a CPA because that looks great. So there is that influence that is
yeah.
usually there.
And I know that one of the things that CalCPA's and others are doing is trying to reach and doing lots of programs that try to reach these kids early on just to expose them to the opportunity that they can get in the profession. I know that's a big part of the why.
Yes, it is because less people know about CPAs, I think now more than ever. And so it is the stories that probably will be an ask of mine. The stories are really important for
Yeah,
everyone to tell. Yeah.
absolutely. So you wind up going to Marquette and you decide to major in this funny thing called accounting. Obviously, you like it. And so you'll
I
have to
do.
tell us why. For the second part of your journey, and this is kind of young adulthood, your college years, and your early working years, the song you picked was Goodbye Stranger by Supertramp. So take us through that period of your life and what you're dreaming of now that you're armed with a little bit of knowledge of this CPA thing.
The accounting to me was like new. I didn't take a class. I don't think we even had one in high school, unfortunately. So for me, what I loved about it is I felt like I could do like detective work, right? I could find something or see something, analyze it, a lot of that analytical piece to it, and find an answer, right? And help others see what was going on and help them to make a decision. So for me, it was kind of an investigative reporter type of thing. So that's what I loved about it. And the song to me is I grew so much and changed. And for me, that song is, again, Supertramp was big during my whole high school, college years, but it's like another phase. So Goodbye Stranger, like leaving, I think, yourself that is maybe more doubtful, doesn't have the confidence that you need to have, is shy. I grew up not in a city. And so probably was afraid of my own shadow at times, which is strange now when I think back about it and probably should have pushed myself in a different direction. But I was learning and changing. And so for me, that song signifies like another phase that I think we all go through, right? As we push ourselves and be uncomfortable. I think that is so key in life to be uncomfortable so that you can grow and navigate. And when I came out of school, my mom had started her business. And so at that point, my dad became sick. He had cancer. And so I started a job, but then left that job and helped run her business so that it could be in business and be sustainable so she could take care of my dad. So that was another turning point of seeing life differently too, through a lens of your family and your service to your family and being there for them and putting kind of your dreams on hold for a while so that you can go do what you need to do for them.
Really like that early on caregiver type of life. You had to make some changes.
We probably all go through a caregiver
We do.
stage.
Multiple times.
Yes.
Multiple times. And I think when we're younger, certainly people talk about it a lot. And thank goodness there's a lot more conversation and help and supports for the caregivers now. But back then, People didn't talk about it as much. Just did it.
You did. And there wasn't the support, to your point, of
No.
I'm going through this. I'm young, putting my life a bit on hold.
Yeah.
And you think about even everyone that's taking care of their parents or children. You need the support. And today, thankfully, people are more transparent and open about it.
Yeah. Later in life, you pick a career and a profession where I do think that it allows one to be able to do that, especially if you are entrepreneur in nature and you own your own firm, et cetera. But I certainly, let's be clear, back in the days that you're talking about, none of that was like in the plan. Like I didn't know that the profession would allow that to happen. That was not why I picked it. And I assume that was not why you picked it either.
No, I just thought
Yeah.
it's business. I'm going to do that. And I want a job when I get down the road. I'm going to pick it for that
Right.
reason.
Right.
Yeah.
There is also this, a lot of people ask, so when you were taking all the accounting classes and trying to build a career, there is a fork in the road where you also need to decide, are you going to be a CPA? Meaning, are you going to try to be certified in the profession? And some people say yes, and some people go the other way. And I think there's a lot of dynamics to that decision that aren't just black and white in terms of taking a test. I think this is a good point for us to talk about your personal story, why you decided, but some of the things that have changed over the years and why I think it's becoming maybe an easier pathway for young people to decide to do the certification.
Interestingly enough, so I graduated with a finance major, and then I went and decided I was going to get my MBA. So I did that. I was working away, and a recruiter, and I don't know if this would happen today, but a recruiter told me, he's like, if you want to be a CFO, you need your CPA. You better get it. He said, even though you have your MBA, your finance, you're doing accounting and tax, you need to get that because that's credibility in the marketplace. I was working like you were, probably 80 hours, 70 hours a week. And I thought, oh my gosh, okay, I'm going to go get my CPA. And my son was born too. Okay, we can do it all. We can do it all. So I did. And that was the point which changed my trajectory because then I had a dual role working with the CEO, working on strategy and finance accounting also, because I was doing tax and accounting. That started more of the change for me because people did see I was serious. They saw there was more credibility and I had that ethics piece. And I did actually, when I got the CEO job at the Institute of Real Estate Management, they hired me because I had my CPA. That was a differentiator because they said, we know financial numbers and we're dealing with commercial buildings that are significant. We're financial asset managers and we want to make sure the person understands that. It's been a differentiator for me. And I hear that from other individuals, professionals. I actually had a student who's a finance major getting her CPA, and she said, I just want people to listen to me, and they won't listen to me right now. So if I have my CPA, I think they'll really listen to me. So she was getting her CPA. And you mentioned now it's easier. I think the path is just more flexible, which we're shifting from the 150 hours to 120 hours and 2 years experience, and not just the 150 and the 1 year of experience. So definitely more flexible to meet you where you are in your career journey. That's really important because we all have very different paths. We want to make sure that we can capture those individuals and have those individuals really come into the profession because that diversity is so important to who we are.
I think you captured it beautifully. It is about having that flexibility because we all come at it differently. I'm one of those people who actually did it straight out of school. And back when I took it, because I'm 30 years plus of taking the CPA exam, back when I took it, you could actually write, you could sit for it. There was a time when Denise and I both took it, where you didn't need to have what is the equivalent of a master's degree to take the CPA exam. You could take it straight out of having a bachelor's. And in fact, I sat for it and I didn't even have my bachelor's in Virginia. Like I was getting my bachelor's that year. I took the CPA exam and 2 weeks later I graduated from college type of thing.
You're a model. Shannon is a model, everyone. She is. Because to do it in like your last year, that is the best way. It's difficult. So you are the model, Shannon.
I will give all the credit to a professor. We had a professor, Professor Ray Hunt at the University of Virginia, who actually put together a program for several of us in the accounting department who he would mentor us and help us study our like last year of college, our senior year. And we all had to sign up to say that we would basically take it serious, which means you're skipping the parties, your weekends are his, and he would pour into us to help us prepare. And he did, and we passed. Like the proof is in the pudding. Like it actually
Mhm.
did work because we put in the time. But I knew myself and I knew I was going to law school, Denise. And I knew I was like, if I don't take this exam now, like I'm at the height of my knowledge. If I don't take this exam now, I'll probably never take this exam. Like I just don't see it. And it was a huge differentiator because I'm in law school and I've already passed the CPA exam, which by the way, I thought was significantly harder than the bar exam. If
I've
to this
heard
day, I
that.
think it's significantly harder on so
Yeah.
many levels. But then that changed. So as you and I both know, so I was able to take that while, like I said, I was in college about to graduate. But then that changed and the state started requiring that you basically needed 150, right, credit
Mhm.
hours to sit for the exam, which means you basically need to get a master's. And I remember I talked to a lot of students who were like, yeah, I don't think I could do that because to your point, I'm going to go get my MBA. Like, why would I just take an extra year to then be able to sit for the CPA exam? And then I can come out at the time it was whatever, like the big 8 accounting firms or the big 6, whatever it's now for. But here's my starting salary with my CPA, or I actually get this master's and maybe it's an extra year and it's called an MBA, but then I go work on Wall Street and here's my starting salary.
Right.
Like that cost benefit started becoming an issue for
It
people.
did. We did see that. I believe that a number of really qualified individuals went into IT or different areas because they could. They just needed
Yeah.
4 years and they're like, I can't do this extra year financially, time wise.
Right.
And you're right. The cost benefit, when you look at that, it just wasn't there. We looked at a lot of that when we were having the conversations about what needs to change going forward and decided the 120 plus 2 years makes sense.
Because you would have missed out on a me. Like, I would not have been a CPA had that been the requirements. Because like, I'll just go to law school and I'm just gonna make more money,
Oh,
right?
exactly, and we wouldn't have wanted to miss out on you, Shannon. Good job.
But it wind up being, like, for both of us, the best thing that ever happened and opened up so many opportunities. I think also you alluded to something very important. I do think that there was a time where the background of CFOs really was heavy CPA. What I'm seeing now is that there's been a shift,
Mhm.
especially when I think about, like, tech companies, et cetera, and the CFO track is more filled from the FP&A track, the finance side of the house, which are people typically getting MBAs. And so the CPAs often take a track where they become controllers and chief accounting officers. But then if you have that skill set, right,
Mhm.
that's you're a CPA and you understand finance, et cetera, you become golden because you can
Yes.
do both as a CFO and there's less of you.
It is that unicorn, kind of the unicorns
Yeah.
out there, and I 100% agree with you. Having that the CPA gives you a risk profile and that skepticism that I think is very important, especially today when you're looking at decisions, but also the tech and understanding some of the financial components is extremely important. So if anyone is listening to this and deciding where you want to lean into, I would say lean into definitely the tech piece. Shannon and I were talking about
Yep.
Claude Code and coding, and so important that we're all leaning into that and really experimenting. And the professional skepticism, there's a lot of value for that from a risk profile today, because I'm not sure people are going there necessarily when they're making decisions.
Okay, so Denise, you alluded to some of the things you did later in your career, but let's get you there. You've taken a little bit of a step back, had to, family first, right? Before that was a term, you were doing family first. But it also makes a lot of sense just giving like the 8-year-old Denise who was doing the stuff for muscular dystrophy, and then the high school Denise who started this club in healthcare. The caregiving aspect of who you are continues to show up throughout your whole story. So your early career, you pick a song called Unstoppable. I love that song by Sia. And so take us through where you're working, how you're climbing this ladder, where you think you're going with your career in particular.
I felt behind, right? Because I took a step back. So I felt like I need to move and I need to move fast. And so I think the unstoppable and Shannon having, a child or children, you got to really move. That song to me makes me we talked about this, but want to dance, right? And it fires you up inside, right? Because I think you are unstoppable if you just have to put your mind to it. And so for me, it just reflects the importance of really believing in yourself, making sure you continue to be uncomfortable. I would shift and move wherever I had to. If someone said there's an opportunity, I'm like, I'll take it. There's more work. I'll take it. There's opportunity to go here, stay up all night to work on this project that was really cool. I'll do it. I'll bring my son to work. And he came to work and we worked till 10 at night. They said, bring him to work. And we all worked on this big project. We were building out a whole program for the organization. I said yes. And even when I took this CFO role, I was a little apprehensive because I didn't know the CEO at that time. She was being hired 2 days after me. And she's actually one of my best friends now. I just saw her and spent a week with her. But I didn't know who it was. And I thought, am I crazy? I'm saying yes to this, but the opportunities, Shannon, were so important to me. And I needed to be unstoppable. I need to keep moving. And so I leaned in hard. I remember one of my colleagues, she was an older woman, wonderful person, said to me, what do you have to lose? If it doesn't work, regroup and try something different. But the opportunity you're going to get and what you learn in whatever time it is something no one can take away from you. So I would just say, lean in and say yes, even when you're afraid.
And just through your career trajectory at this point, do you go to a firm? Are you in business and industry?
I'm in an association.
How do you get to an association? Because again, there's so many things you can do with a CPA. You can go to a firm, you can go to a corporation, you can go to an associate. How do you get there?
Fluke. I came out of school and went to a firm for 3 months and then my dad was sick and then I bounced out. And then there was an ad for a financial planner analyst and it happened to be at a large healthcare association for pathologists. Wow. So it was 200 and some million back then. It was big. I saw it in a newspaper because then newspapers were the thing. And so I saw it in a newspaper and I remember circling it and going, oh, okay, this sounds interesting to me. So I just applied and I remember saying, okay, I got to find the email, emails render a specific way for each organization. So I found that and I found the HR director and I just emailed and I got the job. And honestly, I have had such wonderful experiences with supervisors helping me and guiding me. It's been fabulous, men and women, both. But yeah, it was a fluke, just a fluke.
And I've had people say this on the podcast before. It was luck. It was a fluke. I think it's it was a fluke meaning you were qualified. You'd done all the work to be qualified and you were hustling. And people can see that when they're interviewing because they want somebody who is going to come in and make a difference right away. And so people can tell, like you said, you were trying to find the email, you were doing all the, you weren't passively, I'm just going to apply for all these jobs in this ancient thing called the newspaper and I'm going to sit back and wait for it to happen.
I think there's something to the hustle. And you know what's funny about that? I had one of my team members, my VP, he's like, Denise, you're out there hustling. I'm like, yeah, you gotta hustle. That's what you have to do. And maybe I should have picked that as my song, The Hustle. But
the hustle. Do the hustle.
The hustle. But it's
right.
And there's something to that, Shannon. I guess there is.
There definitely is. It's and. I do believe in luck, but luck, and there's a whole saying about luck meeting up with preparation, blah, 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 that type of thing. And so I think there's some truth to it, but make no bones about it. It wasn't just somebody was I'm going to make this person's day to day and hire them. No, it was 10 other things had to happen for you to then be the right person. And they saw that and then they picked you. But you had to have all these other things already. It changes your life though, because it leads to other things, but it also One of the things that I picked up on also is you're a young mom. And I remember those stages of being a young mom and to be in a situation where you're able to still raise your child in a way that I dare say, I'm not going to call it work life balance, but it's probably like it's work life integration, maybe, and that you're able
Yes.
to do that. That had to be game changing for you. And here's the other thing, because this happened with my dad who had to bring me to work. At the time, maybe, like you're like, oh, I got to bring my kid to work. I feel so bad that I'm not home with the kid and we're not like doing the homework there. We're doing it at the office. But what you're doing is you're modeling hard work for that kid, right?
100%. That is important. Back then, I had the people I worked with were so supportive. And they would say, go to the track meet, work when you can. It was a wonderful environment. And I was lucky to have that at that point in time.
I think that's happening more nowadays. Like I get that question all the time, work life balance, and corporations are focused on it. But back then, it was a little probably unusual to have an employer that allowed that to happen.
It was. And I would say, too, ask. I don't think enough people maybe ask and come with a solution and not just suffer in silence. Don't do that. Or not come with a solution. And if there's no break in the work and your commitment,
Right.
most people say, of course.
Right.
So ask.
So you wind up doing well. You're climbing the corporate ladder. What winds up being your first CFO gig?
When I actually took that when my son went to college. So I decided I could do that job downtown Chicago when he was off to college because I could really focus and there was a lot of travel and a lot more commitment. So I made that change then. But that was the one where I really took a chance on that role. I was there about 6 years. And then I was hustling for a CEO role.
Time out. First CFO role was with whom? What organization?
Health information management. So information governance, data analytics, and healthcare
Mhm.
system.
So
Yeah.
your CFO, what is making you think I'm ready for the CEO role? What's going on behind the scenes that you're like, next up for me is CEO?
I was lucky enough, the woman I worked for, she's like, I want you to be the COO too, because you can run the operations, you understand the organization. So I had to do a role there, which was very lucky because that was the thing that I said, okay, now I see it all. I can be a CEO. That was my ultimate goal. But to get a job from a CFO or even a COO to a CEO, no one wants to hire you because they want you to have CEO experience. So it was a struggle, a hustle. I actually interviewed for 3 different roles that I didn't get. So I was out there hustling because the fit just wasn't there. There were just organizations that didn't fit who I was. And thank goodness it didn't fit because then I found at the Institute of Real Estate Management, I found really the role that was for me. But I was hustling, interviewing, and the interviewing was 3 months long a lot of times. I learned from that and just kept moving.
You just named like a bunch of lessons there. I just want you to know. First of all, you talked about just having that lesson of resilience that like you went for one, not two, but three different positions and they didn't work out. So you have to keep picking yourself back up. First, you don't succeed, pick yourself up and try again. Like you keep having to do that. And so that's like just that resilience that says, I'm unstoppable. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep trying. And there was that faith, if you will, of maybe that just wasn't the one for me. And instead of wallowing and being like, I keep taking all these steps backwards and I'm looking at my peers and they're over here and I'm still like not getting these roles because we can get in our own head like that.
Mhm.
I'd love to know how you were able to just keep powering through because when you wind up getting the CEO role, it actually winds up being the perfect role for you and it propels you like what may have seemed like you were going steps backwards, it propels you way ahead.
You're right about the self-talk. You have to talk to yourself that you can do it. And I don't know what it is in me. Maybe I don't know, Shannon. I know like I can do it. And sometimes, my family, I said, I can do that. I can make that. I can do that. And they're like, really? But I think it is just that you can do it and just keep on moving and talking to yourself is having that in your head, that loop, not being defeated.
I had a previous guest, you know what she called it? She called it her delusional self-confidence.
Yeah, I like that. It's
She did.
perfect.
She was like, where other people were like, You can't do this. It's not working. These 5 doors have closed in your face." In her head, she was like, "Of course it's going to happen. Like, it's just a matter of time." She goes, "I was probably delusional, but that's who I am."
That's a perfect term for it.
So we'll move on into your next phase. You get the job. You are now the head honcho. You are the CEO of a large association. And life, like so many of my other leaders, because this is called no boxes, nobody's career trajectory is just going straight on up. You've already had some pivots, but this is a major pivot. And the song that you pick, and it is perfect, I think, for a life pivot that a lot of us go through, is Lean on Me by Bill Withers. So, can you take us through that period?
My dad passed away, and anyone who knows, that's just, it's tough, right? Because your life, you realize, oh, stuff does really happen. And then I got divorced. And so that was a lot, right, to take in. And I don't know, Shannon, when you grow up, you think, oh, you're going to do all the right things. You're going to do this, that's right, and that. And it's all going to work out because you're going to do what's right. And it's like, no, it doesn't always happen that way. Things happened. And what came of that, and that's why the song means so much to me, is there were so many individuals that helped me through, and not always the likely people you think are going to help you through. And I think for me, that was the lesson. You think it's people that are necessarily close to you, but people step up in different ways and they shine. And I had a number of friendships that came from work, of people that stepped up and helped, a number from my community that stepped up and helped. And through that, you get through. And I think the important thing there too is to ask and to be open and be humbled, because it's hard to take help.
You were in one of your most vulnerable states because what did they say? There's like 4 or 5 signs of life changes and they're huge. And when they happen, it's like moving, it's divorce, it's death, et cetera. And when they happen, they can really take you off your rocker. Well, you had 2 of them happen within a certain time period. And so you had to be vulnerable to take that help. Because a lot of times we are type A women and we are like, go, 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 go. We just want to seem like this is polished and this is all together. Oh, yeah, I'm just going to keep moving. And you had to be in a space where you're like, yeah, no, I don't know if I can keep moving without some help.
Yeah, it's hard. You're right. When you're type A and you're unstoppable, you're like, I'm just going to move. But you do. And what comes from that is friendship and so many lessons of who you are and reflections. So you got to kind of lean into it. You really do. And so for me, that song sometimes it brings tears to my eyes because I think about, you know, what it means really, and the people that helped me.
I completely identify with you. I remember when I lost my father, and again, it was later in my life and career, but he was still young. He got really sick and had a debilitating stroke at about 55. And I just remember saying in my head, if I can just make it to like the age he was and like past that age, like I've succeeded in our family history, if you will, because he was just so instrumental to like my life. And I just remember saying, trying to be strong. And I think I've shared this on the podcast before. I remember there's a song in particular that reminds me of him. And this was like years later after he passed. I heard it in like the Muzak in like a CBS or something. And I had tried to be so strong for so long for so many people. And Denise, I heard that song in the CBS and I like lost it in an aisle by myself. Like I couldn't stop crying. And it's in public.
Mhm.
And maybe
Yeah.
it was easier to do that in public with strangers who don't know
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But I remember a stranger came up to me and she prayed. She put her arms
Oh,
around me and she prayed, and I just let it all out. And then she said, Your father's proud of you. God's got you." And she walked away.
wow. Like an angel.
I don't know who this lady is. I can visit. I'll never see her again in life because it was a random CVS I don't even go to. But it was like an aha moment for me, especially with the music that said, you know what, it's okay to ask for help, to your point. It's
Mhm.
okay to grieve, even though it's been like 3, 4 years later. It's
Yeah,
okay. If that's what you need to move, that's what you need. It's okay to feel these things. This is normal. Stop
it
bottling
is.
it up.
It is. But when you're type A, you don't think
Yeah.
you're like, I can do it. Life has a way to say, no, you can't. And you're just, yeah, there's lessons in there.
There's lessons in there. And so this is a big pivot for you personally. And I think that at some point professionally, because you do come over to Cal CPA, and that's where you are today. And that's where
Mhm.
I got to meet you. And I'm so thankful that you made this pivot to Cal CPA. You've been so good for not only our state society, but for the profession as a whole. So walk us through why you made that pivot to Cal CPA and what you've been working on because it's been fantastic. The song that you picked is Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. And I could just see it's like the clouds parting and like I could see the whole video of you just like walking through the offices of Cal CPA. So I love that you picked that song.
I love that song too. I love music. And that's why this was so intriguing to me because I do. I think it brings out just so many different emotions and brings people together. For me, the song, I said this to one of my colleagues a while back. I said, you just got to bring the sunshine inside because sometimes the sun isn't there, but your job as a leader is to bring the sun in. How did I get here? It's another funny route. So I wasn't really looking for a job, but someone called me and said, there's this job. It's in California. My son had moved to LA. He moved like 3 years before I moved or 4. And he wanted to go to college to Santa Barbara. And I'm like, no way. You will not study. There's no way I'm paying for it. You're going to IU. You did the same thing?
You sound like me. My last kid is like, I'm going to go to college at Santa Barbara. And I'm going to apply to Santa Barbara. And I'm going to apply to the community college there too. And he was like, naming all these Santa Barbara schools. I was like, you will go to no Santa Barbara schools because you will probably not go to school.
Exactly. I knew this. And so I'm like, no, you're going to IU. He went to IU, did well. And he's like, I'm going to take a job at Protivity and they're going to move me and my box over to LA. And he did a project there too. And I'm like, this kid is really driven. And he did. He moved there and now he's in the Bay, but the rest is history. So someone called me and said, there's a job in California. It's with CPAs. You're a CPA. Do you want to help your people? Maybe you should think about it. So I said, okay. So it was a fluke. I just interviewed, thought, whatever. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we kind of went through different gyrations and stuff, and it just happened. So again, it's kind of like the stars aligned. It was like, oh, I can work with my profession, be in California. And that's how I got here. And really grateful for the community. It's a fabulous community, as you said, Shannon. I never knew how much there was to do until I came here for the profession. So I always loved the profession, but this to me is not just a job. It is really more than that. It's what can I do to make sure this profession thrives and make sure that we're around for years to come and integral to the marketplace and the economy. So important. So, do you know in what we're doing? I think you asked that, what we're focused on. So much, so much, but really trying to make sure that CPAs have a seat at the table. They continue to have that seat at the table, that they're integral to all that the world does. And I think about when people think of CPA, a lot of times they think tax and audit, but we both know how many opportunities there are for CPAs. So we're trying to make sure that young professionals understand all the opportunities there are and possibilities when you have your CPA. If you're an entrepreneur, you can be in forensic, you can be the business communities, you can be CFOs, you can be in the private. There is so much that you can do. Really, the sky's the limit. And so we're trying to shout that from the mountaintops, really, all the opportunities there are, all the possibilities, and making sure that the CPAs have the tools and the resources and the connections. I think it's the connections in the community that is key.
First of all, listeners, I'm going to 100% tell you it was not a fluke. Denise was the right person for the right time. All of the skill sets that she had been working on her entire career, when she talks about just her passion for serving and where that comes from. when she talks about her hustle, when she talks about, again, why she even chose to become a CPA after going to school and working and having an MBA. All of those things lined up for when this opportunity became available. And it was the right time in her life, even with some of the pivots that she had gone through. As you could tell, I'm going to be her hype person for this. It was like the culmination of so many things in a life that lined up for her to lead this organization. And Denise, I really need you to share with our listeners what CalCPA is, how big it is. I think people really need to understand the magnitude of the organization and the importance of this organization that you're leading, in particular, as we go into this next era of huge changes to a profession like accounting, like law. There's going to be several professions that are forever changed because of AI and digital transformation. And Denise is at the helm of arguably one of the most powerful groups of professionals who will be making this transition for the next era, if you will. I need you to give our listeners this is what Cal CPA is, because it's pretty massive.
Thank you for that, Shannon. And I should take you with me everywhere. So we have about 40,000 CPAs and finance professionals also within our community. And we're focused on, you said it, Shannon, it is a pivotal time, almost a perfect storm in many instances. We're focusing on leading. And because we are the largest state society, how do we lead? So we led in a lot of the conversations for the passage of the 120, the bill AB 1175. But there's a number of important conversations that we're leading in. If you're thinking about ESG and environment, that's something that we're making sure that we have voices in. AI, there's a lot of opportunity with AI for the profession, because when you think about it, who's going to verify, who's going to do assurance testing on everything that's out there for businesses? Who's going to make sure it's real and that people are saying what they're truly doing? It's really accountants, right? And it's auditors, because we have that skill set. So we're doing quite a bit on the advocacy front, talking to legislators about the value of CPAs within the community, our professional skepticism, our ability to look at standards and processes and make sure that there's that objectivity to it. So that's a big piece of what we're doing on the advocacy front. And also making sure that the community stays together and that the community is able to talk to each other, peers helping peers. And Shannon, you know this better than I do, how much our community helps each other when someone needs a job. I've helped so many individuals say, oh, I'll connect you with Kathy Johnson, one of our favorites out there. I'll connect you with Kathy Johnson. I'll connect you with a Corey. Students, young professionals, we have a community that helps each other. And so that is incredibly important to have those individuals on your side as you go through your career. And I will say another piece is really the PR. We have PR campaigns and an agency that we hired in talking about really what CPAs do for the economy and the marketplace. And our big line is really helping to make sense of what's next. And Shannon, you said this, the world it's chaotic. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of noise out there. How do you differentiate signals from noise? CPAs help to look at what's coming down the road and how can I make sense of that? Really, when stuff is complex, CPAs can help bring it into, I think, just more real terms at times and help people get to the next side.
That's right. And I want to underscore just one of the things that was so attractive to me about the profession early on. I happened to get mentored once I started working by a CPA by the name of Larry Bailey. And he was like, if you are a CPA and you come in this profession, he goes, what I can promise you is not only will you always be employed if that's something you want, he's like, you can also be in control of your career and you will always be needed. He was like, literally in every industry. You name an industry, they will need your skill set and you will have that for the rest of your life. And when I think about the plethora of industries that I've personally been able to work in, I've worked in biotech, I've worked in tech, I've worked in entertainment, I've been an entrepreneur, I've done all of these things. Like, I would not have been able to do a lot of those things without having that background. And so I think it's more of showing particularly younger people, but also there's people who switch mid-career that
Yes,
you just have so many options with having this background that it's empowering, quite frankly.
it
It's a
is.
safety net. It's
It,
one of
it,
the ultimate safety nets.
it is.
Even with AI, the critical thinking that you get from having this CPA, I know two people right now. I'm not sure I would want to do this, but they are both in their 80s and they still have their licenses and they're still out there advising companies and doing work. And I think it keeps them young. I hope to be retired personally, but that's their option.
You have an option. I think that's the key, right? You have an option if you want. I think I'm going to hype you a little bit because when I think about all that you do, anytime someone asks Shannon, she says, yes, I will help. I will mentor. Anytime someone needs someone to step up and from a financial perspective on a board, you step up. You are unstoppable yourself. You never quit and you're always showing up with a smile and energy. And that takes a lot and it doesn't go unnoticed because
Yeah.
in the community, it's like, oh, Shannon, yes. If you can get Shannon, we got to win. So I just want to thank you for all the support and all you do to mentor. And at the Alliance of Black Women Accountants, you gave such a great keynote to them. You used music because you used different verses. And I just want to thank you because you always show up
Yeah.
and it's always in a very positive and energized and with enthusiasm. So thank you.
Thank you for that. This podcast is about you. But one thing you mentioned, and because music is so important, I do want to underscore for the listeners is that there's also this stereotype that, especially when we came out, that when people found out I was CPAs, especially in corporate America, they would be like scratching their head. They were like, "You don't seem like a CPA. You don't look like one." And it's I've always been very authentic about my creative side. I love music. I love dance, and that's just it. You can be a CPA and all these things,
Yes.
right?
Yes. That's a campaign that we have
I
too.
know.
CPA and so there's John Garrett and he has a book, What's Your And? And it leans right into the importance of being more than just your career. You're so many other things and showing up that way.
I think that's so important for, again, the no boxes audience. There is no box. You can do all these other I never thought I would be a filmmaker and then have a film that goes to Cannes and win. Like that was never a dream, but being a CPA was actually super helpful for being a filmmaker because when you think about making a film, you have to have a budget. You have to meet that budget. You have to understand how to negotiate and get the cost down. You have to then try to sell the thing, right? And so, like, that CPA skill was completely helpful in entertainment of all things, which was never like a dream for me to want to even do. So, I always say to my kids, get some basic accounting and business, even if you don't go into this. I think that all kids in college should take an accounting class. I'm biased.
Agree. Now in high school, you need to take a finance class because they put in a new, regulation. It's just so important.
It's a life skill. And then if you're good at it, like it's a whole career on so many levels. I thank you for sharing that. I thank you for sharing what CalCPA is doing. And look, we could talk to you all day, Denise, but I want to know a couple things. How can we support you in CalCPA? And then I want to know your happy song. If you were just walking down the street and you heard this song, it would just put a smile on your face.
So what can you do for me? For CalCPA, the profession would say, tell your story. Tell your stories. Don't tell the story that, you busy season, you walk 9 miles in the snow up a hill. Don't tell that story. Tell the story of all that the profession afforded you and the community. So outreach, show who you are so much, tell your story and reach out. That's what I would say. We want to fill the community with as much buzz as we can and link into me. Please link into me because then you can share and we can create more of a buzz out there. So that would be my ask. The song I love is Ain't No Mountain High Enough. I love that song. If I hear that song, I start singing and I have a terrible voice. So it has to be in the shower or somewhere where no one can hear me. But I love that. And I'd like to dance. I took ballet as a young person. I always wanted to take tap, but it was ballet. But I love to dance, and it makes me energized. So you'd see me running down the street.
So I love that. First of all, I love to dance too. So see, like you got two CPAs on here who you would look at me like, dance? What are they doing with dance? They're like numbers people. No, you can be a CPA and have all of these things. Secondly, I wish we could sing because we could do our duet about ain't no mountain
I'll let you
high
sing.
enough. Keep me from
Valley.
you low enough.
Doot, doot.
Doot. I love the doot doot,
That's
but
all
we
I can
can't.
contribute, Shannon.
We won't torture you. And what advice would you have? Okay, so CPAs, we're definitely going to be posting this to a lot of CPAs out there when this episode comes out and really putting that call for them to like, let's actually tell these stories. Denise wants your stories. And then what would you tell my listeners who aren't CPAs, who may either have kids that are looking to go into professions themselves, may have interest in going into the profession, or they just want to be supportive? What would you say to more the general public as to how they can be supported?
I would say talk to your CPAs, reach out to your CPAs, try to understand what they do, and just ask questions. Be curious, because we're out there for a public protection standpoint as well. What we do is much bigger than just audit or tax. It's really from a public protection standpoint. So be curious and just ask questions. Your CPA is real and does have an and too, and would love to hear from you.
Denise, it has been so fun getting to learn a little bit more about your journey and your story. Let's recap your playlist because I love your songs and they are so uniquely not only you, but they just show that CPAs have a lot of range. First, you pick Going Your Own Way, Fleetwood Mac. Next, you pick Goodbye Stranger by Supertramp. Third, you pick Unstoppable by Sia, followed by Lean on Me by Bill Withers. Your last song is Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. And your bonus song is Ain't No Mountain High Enough. And there's several versions of that song. Which version of the said song would you like for your playlist? Because there are several of them.
I guess the original one.
We're going to go old school with good old Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell version. How's
Ooh,
that?
I love that. Love it.
Denise, thank you so much for being on No Boxes, Just Verses and sharing your journey. We really appreciate it. And we're rooting. Let's go, CalCPA.
Let's go. Thank you, Shannon. Grateful for you.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to No Boxes, Just Verses. And if this episode moved y'all, please share it, rate us, follow the show on your favorite platform, and we can keep building our leadership playlists together. So you can find me, guys, on Instagram as Shannon Nash 1 and No Boxes Just Verses on Instagram. You can also find me on LinkedIn as Shannon Nash ESQ CPA. You can also find No Boxes Just Verses on LinkedIn. You can visit our website at noboxesjustverses.com. Finally, don't forget to check out the show notes. The show notes are super important because this is where the playlists will live. You will be able to get these playlists on Apple and Spotify. You'll also be able to follow up and see how to reach out to the guests, follow them and support them. Until next time, I need you to stay unboxed. You come for the stories, but you stay for the playlists. I'm Shannon Nash, and I'm out.
No boxes, just verses. Listen to the sound. No boxes, just verses. We not playing around.